So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our workshop, Harnessing Cities and Regions in Europe Digital Decade. I'm Hugues Thomas Castelnau from DG Connect, Digital Decade Strategy Unit, and I will guide you through today's program. So before we begin, let me briefly recall why this workshop takes place now. As you know, the Digital Decade is a shared European effort towards a fair and competitive digital transformation, and its success depends on contribution from the different level of governance. Local and regional authorities are essential to this effort. They implement digital infrastructure, provide public services, support SMEs, and bring policies closer to citizens. Recent discussion at EU and national levels highlight the need for more structured cooperation, clearer roles, and better alignment between national and subnational authorities. Our aim is today to take stock on what is working, where the gaps are, and what could be straightened in terms of governance, coordination, data, and capacity. This deep dive discussion is also an opportunity for us to listen to member states, to cities and regions, and to partners involved in practical tools and initiatives. So let me briefly walk you through the structure of the workshop before we begin. As you can see on the screen, we have three main parts. First, we start with member state insights, with contribution from Italy and Australia, followed by a short Q&A. Second, we move to local actors' perspective, including Eurocities, CMR, and three-level city flash inputs from the Netherlands, Sofia, and Bordeaux. After a 15 minutes coffee break, we continue with panel 3, which focuses on solutions and accelerator from the Committee of Regions, the Citiverse EDIC, industry partners, and the Commission AI tool for the local level. Finally, we conclude with an interactive Slido session and a short wrap-up. Before handing the floor to Eric, just a few housekeeping points. The session is recorded and will be published on our Digital EU YouTube channel. The slide will be shared after the event. And for the interactive session later, you can already see the question in the chat. Feel free to keep them in mind during the presentations. With that, I'm pleased to open the workshop, and I will now give the floor to Eric Peters for the introduction and the context setting.
Thank you so much, Hugues. I'm really delighted to be here with you for this afternoon to discuss how we can better harness the power of cities and regions for the digital decade. And I am delighted to see so many participants joining from across Europe, representatives of local and regional authorities, national administrations, industries, academia, and civil society. I think it reflects something that is essential and that has been touched by Hugues in his introduction. The digital decade cannot be delivered from Brussels alone. It is at its core a shared European project that depends on action and leadership at every level of governance. But before we enter into the details and the outstanding lineup of speakers that we have this afternoon to present the experience, to share views, I'd like maybe to say a few words on the digital decade itself, in particular for those who are less familiar with the program. So just remind us that this program, was led by the COVID crisis and the wake-up call that this crisis had on the fact that digital is now percolating in every aspect of our life, business, as citizens, as students, as worker. And we have decided under the leadership of President von der Leyen to set up a digital strategy, which is putting all together common objectives and targets with member states, having a government framework and mechanism to work together, a new way to approach digitalization, very practical, very concrete, through national roadmaps that have been set by member states, in which they are designing the measures that they are intending to take for contributing to their national targets and trajectories. I mean, this is a massive effort. It's about 2,000 measures representing 288 billion that are being put together by member states under a common objective. And also very concrete tools such as European Digital Infrastructure Consortium, which are showing that concretely we can work together on many aspects, and we will have presentation of some of those concrete projects later. I would like to highlight three main elements of this policy program. Next slide, please. First is to show that we are driving technological change not for the sake of technological change, but we are driving it for purpose. The purpose to become a technological leader around the world, to be more sovereign, to be more resilient. A purpose that is also putting people at the center, to make sure that people education, that people inclusiveness, that democracy is being protected. And also, last but not least, making sure that all these efforts, this technological development, goes hand in hand with fighting climate and making sure that we are synergizing green and digital. The second aspect of this program, next slide, is referring to the very detailed analytical background and underpinning that we are using for deriving conclusions. We have a set of data collection that is represented here in particular, but it is really a core of what we are following and monitoring with these different targets that you have on the screen. But we are doing much more. I mean, we are basically collecting 900 data points per year to try to really capture all the digital transformation in all the dimensions that you see here and even beyond, whether it's about skills development, whether it's about digitalization of business or e-government or infrastructure. So this is a very hard-nosed work which relies on a very solid evidence. The third element, next slide, is that we are not just doing an analysis, we are also doing recommendations to all of us, as a group, the Commission and 27 member states, but also recommendations specifically to countries that are facing specific challenges depending on the area that we are looking at. A bit like for the European semester, but really dealing only with digitalization. So this set of policy action is really underpinned on the analysis and is driving the action altogether. Now, next slide. This moment, we have a new element, which is impacting the digital decade, which is that with the new proposal for the next financial framework, the Commission is wishing to establish a strong link between the recommendations that I mentioned earlier, and I will give a few examples later. There's a strong link between those recommendations and the next MFF, and in particular, the National Regional Partnership Plan, which are going to be the core engine for the funding by Europe to national member states and their projects. This is something that, of course, includes also regions, and this is really at the core of the partnership plan, involving regional authorities. This is a new scheme that is going to be simpler and faster and more impactful for the delivery of our funding. And this is also some, NRPPs will also have a strong link with the decade, not just with the recommendation that member states will have to follow, but also in the link with national roadmap, making sure that national roadmap and the NRPPs are going to be completely complementary. And this is something that is very important for us, in particular with regard to the simplification that we aim at having in all our relationships. So next slide. Another important element, to be precise, is that since the start of the decade, we have been taking into account and analyzing also the role of cities and local authorities in our work and in making sure that digitalization can be successful. And you can see the sort of recommendation that we already issued in past reports, whether they refer to improving data collection, because we know that the fact that we can access to data located in local communities and regions is going to help enormously on the capacity that we will have to identify the challenges and the actions that are needed to accelerate digitalization. We also issued recommendation on the need for cooperation to stimulate closer dialogue with regions and cities. I think over the last 2 years, we have seen the value of that dialogue, which has been involved some of the speakers and some of those who are participating today. We also see the need to better collect and disseminate best practices. A few of our regions and cities do things already, and they do have accumulated a huge amount of knowledge and expertise, And very often, this expertise and knowledge is not so easy to spread and to communicate to each other. So there is clearly a need to really make sure that we can disseminate those best practices. We also need to build on existing local observatories that are adding a lot of value in the understanding of the phenomena that we have on the local ground, and not forgetting the importance of the Declaration of Digital Rights and Principles, which is also a very important element of the policy program. Now, next slide. We also need to discuss today, the very concrete flows of information, actions, element, dimension, in which regions and cities do play a role to make our digitalization a success. This is not just about talking about institutions or policies. It's also about talking and identifying the different elements that are at stake here. Cities and regions are the places where digital transformation become real, when connectivity is deployed, where SMEs innovate, where public services go online, where digital skills are developed. So this is very important that, if you want to be successful with our API strategy with data spaces, that we involve these actors, which are very important. And also because cities and regions are also the first responders to many of today's challenges, whether it's cybersecurity risk, climate change, skill gaps, demographic shifts, and the pressure to provide efficient and inclusive public services. So just to name a few of those issues, and I'm sure that during the event we are going to have several other examples, just to say that it is really critical to have these elements to be factored in our discussion to better understand where we are. Next slide. This is also happening at a very particular time for the digital decade, because we are starting a reflection on the review of the decade. So when we decided with co-legislator to put forward the decade back in 2021-22, we decided that it was very important that we could review it depending on the technological changes, on the political changes, and we can see already now in 2025 that we are quite in a different place as 5 years ago. So we foresaw the possibility for having a review that will just adapt to the situation. And this has been taken as a key and priority, including for this college and for the new EDP like last year, NRB Funen, which has, as part of a mission letter, a clear request from the president to undertake this review. And this review will be important because it's not just going to be a change of targets or objectives. It's also looking at the governance to make it more lean and to simplify as much as we can, but also to see how we can harness better regions and cities as part of the governance. And this is where today's deep dive and today's event is taking place. And I'd like to mention in particular, we will repeat it several times today, that there is possibility for you to have a say and to contribute by input in two directions. First, there is a call of evidence that is being published on the Have Your Say portal of the Commission, and you have the QR code that is on the slide now, and targeted questionnaire for cities and regions, in which basically everyone could really express their views on the need for adjustment, the possibility of taking opportunities or of the challenges that you are facing in this context. And last, I would like to finish with the last slide. That is really putting at the core of what we are trying to do with this event. First, I think, as I said, there is a lot of local communities and regional actors who have already experience and who could showcase what they are doing to advance the digital target and objectives as part of the digital transformation. We really need to have this information and to have this experience sharing. We need to discuss successes, lessons learned, what was overcome when some actors tried successfully to overcome obstacles. We also need to see how far accelerators, such as observatories or mechanisms that exist to strengthen the cooperation and the delivery. We also need to see how and what we can be adding to the post-2026 digital decade governance framework for making this association with countries and with regions and local communities more institutionalized and more permanent in the development of the future decade. And again, there is a link to the discussion that we have put forward, the call for evidence, and also we are going to look at initiatives that which already have been launched in cooperation between Europe, member states, and cities, like Citiverse EDIC, that is going to be presented in detail. So I thank you very much, and I will reconvene later after those presentations to come back on the floor. Thank you very much. The floor is yours. Hugues, back to you.
Thank you very much, Eric, for this excellent framing. So we now move to our first panel, which focuses on member state insights. This session will highlight how national administration are working with regions and municipalities in the digital decade governance structure and where challenges remain. I'm pleased to introduce our first speaker, Marichiara Fortuna, responsible for the Observatory for Digital Transformation at the Italian Department for Digital Transformation. She will present recent findings on the role of local and regional level in the digital decade, including monitoring tools and practical support for local actors. Marichiara, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me here. My name is Marichiara Fortuna. I'm from the Department for Digital Transformation. And our department has the peculiarity that it focuses only on the digitalization of the public sector. So over the years, we have developed several tools and several methods to strengthen the local involvement in policy management. And we believe that these experiences could bring valuable insight to the Digital Decade program. So next slide. Okay, so I will cover two main areas in my talk. First of all, how we have faced the enormous challenge of the next generation EU in the field of the public sector digitalization, with a specific focus on how we involved local authorities in the implementation of the strategy and how it has indirectly positively affected our digital decade performance. And the second part will be about how we are building a bridge toward the future policies, collecting territorial data and creating a monitoring environment that empowers local authorities. I think this is really aligned to what Eric mentioned about the recommendation about the local involvement in the digital decade. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, more? Okay, let's start with the next generation EU and the magnitude of the challenge we had to face. So Italy received 6 billion euros, more or less, for the digitalization of the public sector, which was an enormous amount of resources. And the number of implementing entities was very, very huge, about 22,000, mostly local authorities. And for the first time, the focus shifted from expenditure to results. We had about 67 target and milestone to reach. So this enormous challenge required a comprehensive strategy to be faced. Next slide. So we decided instead of funding individual initiatives, we tried to build a digital ecosystem for the public sector. So a set of processes and infrastructure, data sharing platform, tools and services, not to modernize a piece of administrative issues here and there, but to create a coherent ecosystem, which was aligned to the digital decade framework by design and user-centric by design using the design system of Italy. So next slide. Okay, this ecosystem was particularly designed for municipality. In Italy, we have about 8,000 municipalities, which are often very small, scattered in remote areas, often lacking technical expertise. So it was quite challenging to involve them. Furthermore, Italy has a traditional issue with the effective use of European fundings. So we changed completely our approach. We simplified completely the access to funding using a lump sum mechanism, so a fixed amount of resources, no need to write project proposals, no financial reporting, and just one single platform to follow the entire grant life cycle. We also built a team of more than 200 assistant professionals working side by side with the municipalities and supporting any technical issue. And then we built a constant dialogue with all the parties involved, with all the stakeholders, both public and private, and signed important deals with the main representative bodies. This method allowed even the smallest municipality to participate to our program and transform the central relationship with the local administration. So next slide, and we can see the results. So the results so far have been very impressive. 99% of the Italian municipalities were involved in the digitalization projects, with about 60,000 projects. 78 of them are already completed. So even on the evolution level is going really well. And this, all these projects impacted the Digital Decade indicator for the digital public services for citizens. So traditionally, we had quite a low score on this indicator. But last year, we had a 50-point score increment, and we overcome the EU average score. All this experience has shown us that these ingredients work very well to trigger a burst in local innovation. So a policy-aligned ecosystem designed from the start, the use of lump sum projects, and on-the-ground assistance of technical experts. So next slide, and let's move to the second part of my talk. All I said was about our experience with the Next Generation EU, but we needed, all of us need to look ahead. So we need to understand what is working, what has worked in this massive investment, what remains to be done, how can we design the new policies. So with all this experience, we had a massive amount of data from the Next Generation EU, but we needed new data and a structured approach. So we created the Observatory for Digital Transformation, which is an institutional hub inside the Department for Digital Transformation, with the mission to monitor effectiveness of our effort in digitalization and promote data-driven policies. It is based on three key pillars, so centralized infrastructure, with a state-of-the-art big data platform and a data lake, which is led by the department, but open for use for other public administration, a single monitoring environment where we are integrating together, bringing together the enormous amount of data collected with the Next Generation EU projects, together with data from other sources, KPIs, visualization. And then a partnership, central and local agreements, partnership for joint data collection, for joint data analysis, with this central institution as the Bank of Italy or the National Statistical Institutes in Italy, but also with association representing cities, regions, provinces, mountain communities. Let's go to the next slide. In this context, we are developing several projects, and one of the main of them is the Digital Municipality Map. The goal of this initiative is to really understand the municipality real situation and identify the needs, then monitor the impact of the massive investment we did, and understand how to go ahead. Another goal of this project is to provide municipality with objective self-assessment tool, so they can measure objectively their level of digitalization. This project is run together with the National Association of Italian Municipality and the Bank of Italy. And together we co-designed a big survey, which was, we work a lot to be sure that this survey really reflected the municipality, the city's real context. We ran 2 editions so far, the first in 2024, and the second is just finished like 3 days ago. And we had more than 4,000 participants. So it's more than the 50% of Italian municipalities, which is really a lot. And the next slide, we can see some of the results. These are the insights we got from the last year edition. We still have to analyze the new data. But the analysis is giving us incredible support to build data-driven policies because it goes really deeper on the actual and real needs of the municipalities. For instance, we observe that several back office processes are still manual. So the 40% of responding municipalities say they have digitalized only the front office of the services. Or the very important barrier to progress was the lack of resources and skills, so the importance of learning programmers. And another point was the level of use of the services by the citizen. So insights like this are crucial for us for shaping the future intervention and understanding where our support is more needed. Next slide. So data alone is not enough. So we decided to share the insight, like those before, with local stakeholders in specific and dedicated session. So in this session, we involved the local administrator, technical staff, and we sit together with them to interpret the data and reason about the underlying phenomena and try to co-design a policy option. So the goal of this workshop is to turn raw evidence into collective understanding and shared solution. And all this well approached, so shared data collection, the idea of engaging municipalities, building together insight and strategies, for us has proven very effective. Let's go to the last slide. Okay. So I want to introduce you our single monitoring tool we are still developing. So this is just like the first part of this tool. It's a portal for decision makers, and it provides strategic level visualization, analysis, and data. And this is possible because we are integrating the data. So the data behind leveraging the data lake infrastructure are integrated, so we can observe together data from the Next Generation EU and the digital municipality map data, and everything we integrate can be shown together. And this tool serves also as a prototype for a broader external tool we want to make available for central and local public stakeholders, so that also the municipalities can access their data and check the results compared to some benchmark. I want to show you this tool, so I will try to share my screen. Okay. 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 I hope you see. Okay. So this is the app. And as you can see here, we have a section for monitoring the Next Generation EU. I'm sorry, it's in Italian, so maybe it's not so easy, but like here we can monitor everything related to the Next Generation EU project and all the related information, so the targets, the reporting, the financial reporting, but we have also information about the digital municipality map. So let me show like this area. Here you can see all the information we used to for the data collection. Here are all the respondents. So as you can see, some municipalities are very, very small. And here, these are just some KPIs that were needed for the data collection. And here you can see all the information for each municipality. And let me show here. Okay. Now you should see another view. Here we have, I'm looking the information for just one municipality. So these are all the information we are collecting from the Digital Municipality Map survey. But anytime that there's some Next Generation EU project that the city is running, which is related to that information, here we can see also the information about the Next Generation EU project. So for instance, from the cloud migration, information about the interoperability. Here we have digital payments, digital identity, web portals, and so on. So yeah, this is just the first view. But yeah, we wanted to show you the power of this data integration approach that can be move forward as we integrate more data. For instance, we have in our pipeline to integrate the digital decade targets. And this, as I told you, this is also a prototype for an external tool for the municipalities, where they can see their data and their benchmark and have a unified data-driven perspective on all the policies. And this is also a way to give back the value that we have collected from the data to the cities, to the same cities. So we hope these experiences can bring valuable insight to the Digital Decade program. And I really would like to know if others have similar experiences, to get in contact with others working on similar areas, sharing perspective, data, insight, tools, everything. So really feel free to reach out to me. And thank you very much.
Huge thanks to you, Marie-Chiara. Very interesting presentation indeed. So our second speaker is Lisa Brouwer, legal officer at the Austrian Federal Chancellery. She will present Austria's governance model for the digital decade and reflections on the multi-level cooperation. Lisa, please go ahead. You're muted, Lisa.
I'm so sorry. Thank you. So good afternoon to everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity to present Austria's governance structure on the digital decade. I'm Lisa Brouwer. I'm working at the Federal Chancellery in Vienna in the Directorate for Digitalization and E-Government. So yeah, let's start with the slides. First of all, I'd like to give you an overview of our governance structure. So we, as the Federal Chancellery, we have the central role for all the coordination for the digital decade topics, and we are acting as the main point of contact. And what's very important for us to involve as many stakeholders as possible. And we try to bring all these stakeholders on the table and ensure that information flows through several committees and task forces, which I'll present here. And just one important note, all the implementation doesn't only happen here in the Federal Chancellery, it remains with the respective specialist departments. And that's how we ensure a whole of government approach and not just do isolated projects. Next slide, please. So first task force is the Chief Digital Office task force. So all the 30 ministries has their own Chief Digital Officer. And they are responsible for digital projects across the ministries. And within the task force, they present the different projects. They meet about 7 times per year. And the task force has core functions, which are aligning the roadmap and implementation measures, developing and communicating the digital strategy for the government, sets common IT principles and decisions, and it also monitors the federal digital portfolio and reports on the progress. So in short, this task force keeps the whole picture together and helps the implementation across the government. Next slide, please. So one of our core of Austria's e-government is the so-called BLSG, which is the abbreviation for federal, states, cities, and municipalities. And its organizational, legal, and technical standards are developed through a joint process. And this forms the foundation for all the implementation of generic basic services and specific e-government solutions. And the members of these corporations are representatives of the federal government, businesses, provinces, Association of Austrian Cities and Municipalities, then the main Association of Austrian Social Insurance Institutions, and also liberal professions. So you see in this corporation, there's a lot of different stakeholders involved. And together with the ICT Federation, it's one key coordinating body of our Austrian's digital administrations. And all the agendas of the BLSG is within the Federal Chancellery and with the CIO of the Federal Chancellery. So please go to the next slide. So for the implementation of the mobile government or e-government, a modern, secure, flexible, and scalable IT infrastructure is essential. And therefore, the BLSG ensures this cooperation, and it has some formal procedures and committees within the BLSG. And these committees meet regularly, 4 times per year, and they create written standards which are published on internally. And we also take into account input from external committees when it's relevant. So it's not just internal government and with cities and municipalities, also some external consultants are taken into account when needed. And all the decisions are coordinated across public administrations. And so the main part of the BLSG are these working groups, which I think come on the next slide, but just one more second. We also have the extended BLSG, which has kind of a coordinating communication function, and the editorial team is responsible for all the coordination. And on the next slide, all this information, which I just told you, is put into a picture. And you see in the graphic with the different shades of green, all the different stakeholders and where they are part. So, and underneath you see the different working groups. So we have 4 in total. And in these working groups, all the representatives are working together on new standards, on new projects. And from these working groups, all the information comes to the larger BLSG cooperation meetings where the output is discussed. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's just an overview of the 4 working groups of the BLSG. So the main topics are infrastructure and interoperability, integration and access, law and security, and presentation and standard data, all within the e-government and digitalization part. So you see a lot of topics and a lot of work is happening here, and it's really, really important for enhancing our e-government in Austria. Next slide, please. So as you already told, so we have the BLSG, and together with the ICT Federation, they built the core of the government. And the task of the ICT Federation, which are all chief information officers of the ministries, They advise the Federal Chancellor on general matters to do with information and communication technology, always in the context of interdepartmental ICT coordination activities, and they also pave the way for strategic initiatives, deciding how to approach projects, and defining and establishing standards, interfaces, and also specifications. And on an ongoing basis, all these tasks are also published. And if needed, working groups are also set up, but it's more like all the working groups are more happening in the BLSG. Okay, next slide, please. So last but not least, we also have a second task force, the so-called Digital Single Market Task Force. And that's within my unit. And the purpose is to handle all the agendas of the digital decade in Austria. So it's distributed broadly across the governments and all the relevant stakeholders and experts. So what do? We provide a regular overview of the status of the European Union digital dossiers with main focus on digital decade. And we ensure that federal, regional, and local levels are directly involved in adapting and achieving, for example, the digital decade goals, but also for the e-government benchmark. And this collaboration works through the committees I just presented to you. And for example, we present reports on the state of the digital decade or benchmarks or any other activities in the meetings of the BLSG Corporation or the CDO Task Force or the ICT Federations. So they get updated on the digital decade. Next slide, please. So with this approach, we assure that all relevant actors are brought into the process. And at the moment, we have around 200 recipients or main stakeholders for this Digital Single Market Task Force, which is a lot. But we all know how all the digital decade, how many stakeholders have to be involved. And yeah, that's how we ensure that everyone is informed and the coverage is comprehensive. And on top of that broad communication, we also invite ministries, cities, states, and other stakeholders to bilateral meetings to ensure deeper discussions and exchange, to also support participation, transparency, and a coordinated implementation. And so far, the feedback from the experts, from states, municipalities, and ministries is very positive and highly appreciated. So they say they get more detailed information on what's really needed for the digital decade, and that's when we hopefully see the results also in the next report. So yeah, thank you very much. That was all from me for the moment.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for those very interesting insights. We now have around 10 minutes for questions from the audience dedicated for this panel. So please feel free to write in the chat. This is an opportunity to clarify how the approaches we have just heard from Italy and Australia play out in practice. And so for question out of this panel, we will follow up later, and you can write us or contribute through the call for evidence that Eric presented at the beginning of this workshop. I see that we already have one question. I guess it is for Italy. It is written, was there any straightforward legal basis for putting all municipalities related data in a data lake from a GDPR point of view? Was any regulatory piece of legislation, work needed ahead of the municipality's lake?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's a very good point, and we do not collect personal data. So the data lake is only with used anonymized and aggregated data, not at the personal level. Also because we are interested in the level of digitalization of central and public entities. So it's not really like the focus to add personal data. So by design, we avoid all of them. And yeah, so the maximum level of the deepest data we have are at the level of usage of services. So this it's about the GDPR, and about the use of data lake by other public administration is something which is currently being finalized. So yeah, we are working on this topic right now. Okay.
Thank you very much for your answer, Marie-Chiara. For now, I don't see any other question in the chat. So we have a question from Juka saying, related to Cédrine's question, where are the lakes specifically, and has the Commission recent, in October 2025, cloud sovereignty framework been taken into account? So Juka said, related to Cédrine's question, where are the lakes specifically, and has the Commission's recent cloud sovereignty framework been taken into account?
Okay, let me have some time to answer this question. I'll take a little second.
Sure. I'm seeing if there is another question in the chat. For now, no.
Maybe you, if I may, maybe ask a question to our two panelists. And also noting that I see that there is a question on European business wallet. That is, of course, very important for us. The European business wallet is one of the attempts that the Commission is having to really build the single market for digital, and making sure that businesses can really smoothly share trusted information with authorities whenever they are, wherever they are, so being local authorities or national authorities, European authorities. And of course, we are going to really make what we can in our competencies and capacities to really strive to make sure that the use of the business wallet is going to be used as much as possible. Of course, we are at the start of the process. You have seen that we have put forward some concrete proposals a few days ago. So we are going to really make sure that it is accompanied by all the actions that we can do to provide for support. But my question to the two panelists, in the two very interesting presentations they did. So from your point of view, so what is the key, challenge that you have been facing in developing this network and these activities? And if there is one thing that you would like to get out of this discussion from the European level, what would that be?
If I may start, so the structure is built quite easily, but it also depends really on the involvement of all the stakeholders. That, of course, we provide all the information and we make sure that everybody gets it. But at the end, for the implementation and everything, the actual involvement is really, really important. So we make sure that we have a good communication basis with all the stakeholders to get to the point to make it or to do it together. So yeah, I think that would be the key challenge for us.
And how can we help?
I guess to provide as much details as possible, especially for digital decade goals or for municipalities and cities, because often it's measured more on a general level, to also provide more details on how the region or what is measured within the regions and cities.
Thank you. And Maria Clara?
Yeah, I think like the main challenges was really to build this engagement with all the municipalities and have like a trusted relationship. In particular with the Next Generation EU projects, the amount of projects was so massive that really we needed this really strong level of deep relationship. And so, yeah, I think this was the main challenge in the relationship with all these entities. Okay. About the question about the cloud sovereignty framework, about the server, all the server of our structure are in Europe, so this is consistent. If that was the question, then we can go deeper in this topic, like talking with the technicians that are following this part. But yes, this is, I think maybe this is the main point.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your answers. I do not see any question related to this panel presentations, so maybe we can move to the next panel. I'm waiting just 10 seconds, but no, I don't see anything. So we now move to panel 2, which brings the perspective of local actors, city, regions, and their associations. This is where policies meet daily realities and where cooperation becomes essential. So our first speaker is Chiara Venturini, Head of Digital Transformation and Economic Development at Eurocities. She will share how cities contribute to the Digital Decade objective and insight from the Eurocities Digital Forum. So Chiara, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Just the usual sound check to check that you can hear me correctly. Perfect. I see you nodding. Thank you very much. Okay, excellent. Thanks for inviting us. So for those who might not be familiar with Eurocities, we are the leading network of major European cities. I think you can skip quickly through the next slide, and I'm just going to briefly mention that we currently represent about 220 cities from 38 different countries for a combined population of 150 million people. So I have also included a couple of background slides on Eurocities that will be shared after the event. But since I only have 10 minutes, I just wanted to jump right into the subject matter for today. So there is a research from the Committee of the Regions showing that cities and local and regional authorities in general are responsible to implement about 70% of European legislation, and the digital area is no exception to this. So what I wanted to do with my intervention is to really put the digital decade and urban action on digital transformation in the broader context of what we are trying to achieve at EU level and the different areas of competencies of cities. Because the thing is, digitalization is a means to an end. A smart city is not smart because it is full of sensors and because it uses AI. It is smart because it is sustainable and because it delivers a good quality of life for its citizens. So in this context, how do cities use digital tools? The most immediate application, of course, is what we think about using digital to make public service delivery more efficient and more inclusive. That's why we talk about a people-centric digital service, starting from the need that we are trying to address and then designing the technology around that. We obviously also have important activities that cities do in up and reskilling to make both their people and their businesses fit for the new labor market. And this obviously also includes the type of skills that are necessary to navigate the digital age. And finally, cities obviously have a key competence in creating the right environment for companies to prosper, to experiment and innovate, and to ultimately contribute to competitiveness. And the question for us, and you can go to the next slide, the question for our members that are active in our digital forum is, how do we do this? How do we unlock the full benefits of digitalization? So this is actually not on the slide, but Eurocities turns 40 next year. So we have been around for a while, and we are one of the entities that Enrique was mentioning at the beginning, actually, that have been working and interacting with the EU institutions to really help make the digital decade work on the ground. So I'm not going to read all the different points that are on this slide, but I just want to take a moment to mention specifically the value of community-driven initiatives, because digitalization is obviously a really large area of competence with multiple applications, and no one entity can do it alone. So the value of networks like the Nets for Them initiative that groups networks working together to safeguard democracy, or the Living in EU community that brings together local and regional authorities to work on people-centric digital transformation is really important for us and for our members. And we're very glad and grateful that we have received support from the institutions to put these networks into place. And we really hope to be able to continue this collaboration in the future. Now, I'm going to spend a little more time on my next slide, which is actually my last one, I promise, because I wanted to take a moment to also link digital transformation to the other challenges that we have to face in this moment. So we were very glad to see that local authorities are explicitly mentioned in the Democracy Shield that the Commission released a couple of weeks ago, because as I mentioned, we really think that the effective inclusion of cities is going to be key to the success of the actions that are outlined in the Democracy Shield. And also the complement that is the Culture Compass that was also released by Commissioner Miklev on the same day, and to which we also had a very positive reaction. We do think that, we look forward to how we can have a structured dialogue for cities to contribute to the implementation of the Democracy Shield. And in the building of a common digital culture, we were very happy to see, for instance, that the Democracy Shield specifically mentioned links between digital literacy and democratic resilience. The other action that we are looking forward to is the communication on safety in political engagement, because harassment of both elected representatives, political candidates, but also of citizens that get involved in politics, both online and offline, is something that can drive citizens away from engagement, which obviously has strong consequences for the democratic legitimacy of governments at all levels. Now, there is increased attention to the topic of digital sovereignty. So you may have seen there was the first European Digital Sovereignty Summit that took place last week in Berlin. So we are very happy to see that we are trying to reiterate the importance of the continued enforcement of the EU digital rulebook. So this is one of the points that we often mention. Legislation such as the DSA, the DMA, the AI Act, the multiple acts on data and data governance, they are not only aimed at companies. Cities are also among the actors that have to implement the legislation. And so it's quite important for our members that the digital rulebook is enforced in a consistent way, and that we have coherent guidance to help cities implement the provisions correctly. We also wanted to just flag that we hope the digital omnibus that was released last week still maintains the very strong level of protection for data and privacy that we have across Europe, and that there isn't any backsliding at the moment where we are reiterating support for fundamental democratic values like freedom of expression and freedom of information. And finally, on this point, we also want to point out the value of cities and local and regional authorities in general as public buyers, and the way that they can leverage their purchase power to foster the demand side of EU digital technology. So in this context, the upcoming revision of the public procurement directives next year will be a key point where we can try and build the system that gives public buyers the right degree of flexibility to really make a strategic use of public procurement. And finally, I was very glad to see that Enrique has already mentioned the important link between the digital decade implementation and the new MFF. Now, we hope, and we will definitely be speaking about this during the next 2 years, during the negotiations of the MFF. We think that the local level really needs to be involved in an effective way in the implementation of the new MFF. So it is true that the national and regional partnership plans, for instance, will encourage the member states to include the local and the regional level. However, there is no obligation in the current proposal for them to include cities. And we would like to see that changing, because we really think that we need to have cities in the development of the plans, because as I was mentioning at the beginning, cities will be responsible for implementing a lot of the legislation and policy anyway, and they need the means to do so. And the other final point on this is also the reason why we are asking for earmarking of urban funding, because you may have been following the proposed architecture of the new MFF. It basically merges what is now called cohesion policy together with the common agricultural policy and a number of other funding instruments. And so we would like to see some funding earmarked for cities so that they can continue to replicate and to scale up the successful projects that they implement, including in terms of digital transformation. So that was my last point. I'm very happy to take questions if there are any. In any case, I'll be around until the end of this event. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Marie-Chiara. I don't see any question. I'm not sure we have the time in this panel, but I guess we can share your address in the chat so people can write to you and you can follow up later. Thank you very much for this presentation. Our second speaker is Federica Bordello, Director of Policy and Impact at CMR, and she will present the perspective of National Association of Local Governments and reflection on strengthening the multi-level governance. Please go ahead, Federica.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me well. Yes, good. Okay, so thank you for the invitation. I'm very pleased to have CMR part of this event and discussion. Very interesting insights also from the previous speakers. So a good opportunity to exchange. So maybe next slide. Just a few information also from our side, in case you don't know the association. So we are the largest association representing local and regional governments all over Europe, so in 41 countries. Our members, the members of the Council of European Municipalities and Regions are the national associations of local and regional governments, 60 associations representing over 110,000 local and regional governments. Next slide, please. So CMR has a long-lasting experience and history on working on digital transformation with our experts. So the experts, the digital experts within the national associations, we really work on policy and legislative matters, and to really advocate the key needs and challenges for local and regional governments vis-a-vis the EU institutions. We have this year renewed our position on digital transformation for local and regional governments. And it has been already said by some of the previous speakers, but I think it's important to state that local and regional governments are really the place where digital transformation take place. Are the place where the huge amount of public services are delivered, are implemented, is the place where data are collected and shared, and also where a number of trainings and capacity building are developed. So local regional governments are really key actors for this transformation in Europe, and there is really a need to recognize more and value this and value them through an effective and institutionalized multi-level governance. Local and regional governments can also serve as a test bed for citizen-centered innovation, and they are really where the digital decade objectives and targets are transformed in a tangible and effective way for citizens. Next slide, please. However, despite everything that is happening at territorial level, there are still a number of challenges that remain and that really complicate the implementation of this digital transition at a local level. Data collection, use, access, sharing is for sure one of the key barriers at local level, but also the limited interoperability of platforms. And then for sure, the access to funding. I mean, it was already mentioned also by Chiara before. There is no sufficient there are no sufficient funding, and those that are available are still quite complicated for cities and regions to access. This is true at this stage, and thinking about the future and the next MFF, where apparently seems that there can be even more funding for the digital transformation. What we are really hoping is that this funding can really be accessed also by local and regional governments. I currently see the difficulties even in the call themselves, that they are not addressed to the real needs and challenges of the cities and regions. And finally, the limited digital capacity and skills. This is skills and training so skills development and training are definitely one of the key barrier and issues for local and regional governments. And next slide, please. Yeah, but I will come back on this point later. Yes, these are some of the solutions that we foresee. So more cooperation, more sharing of the needs of the best practices, but also of the challenges. We think that Living.eu is one of the key tools for this. And as Chiara said, we indeed hope that this cooperation and this collaboration at all different levels of governments can continue. Additional support for reusable tools, but also shared solutions and peer learning. Simplified and large access to EU funding, as I was saying before, and more trainings and capacity building. And specifically on the trainings and the capacity building point, I would like to present to you a new initiative. Next slide, please. That CMR is about to launch. It will start in 2026. It's a new collaboration that CMR is developing with the EIT Digital, now 28 Digital, newly renamed, to really develop a training program for local and regional governments and their association on AI. It is really a training that will be tailored on the needs of cities and regions to really respond to their challenges and needs, and develop a training program that can be further developed in the months and in the years, and then replicated possibly also in other areas of work. So not only on digital related matters. I think next slide, please. Yes, so I'm coming to an end. So before closing and in view of the Digital Decade review, just maybe few ideas and messages from our side. So what we would like to propose is to ensure easily accessible funding stream, explicitly open to local and regional governments and their association, institutionalize multi-level governments, so really ensure that this is something not a nice to have, but that the examples, for instance, from Italy and Austria that we have seen and we learned today are not maybe isolated cases, but are really practices all over Europe, and support local and regional governments in investing in capacity building, training, and knowledge transfer for cities and regions of all sizes. I think this was my last slide. The next one. Yes. Okay. So thank you so much, and indeed happy to continue this discussion and to learn more also from the next speakers and presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Federica, for those insights and propositions. We now move to the three flash input from cities and municipalities. Our first input comes from Netherlands with Sophie van Velzen, Digital Strategic Advisor for VNG, the Dutch Association for Municipalities. She will share findings from fit gap analysis and views on EU KPIs and local mandates. Sophie, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction and also for the invitation to be part of this workshop today. As you said, my name is Sophie van Velzen and I am working as a strategic advisor at the Association of Netherlands Municipalities, the VNG. And in that role, I'm working on several topics as shown on the agenda. Next slide, please. And I hope I can address these points with you today. Next slide, because I would like to start with a summary of the short analysis we made on the digital decade earlier. Some years ago, we started to assess the digital decade and tried to look for areas of interest for local authorities. And when the European Commission presented the 5 missions, but also the programs on the digital decade and the Green Deal, obviously we found objectives overlapping our social local challenges. And also we definitely identify with the principles and rights as proposed in the declaration, as they are similar to our norms-based approach in the digital strategy of the VNG itself. And then the next slide shows the digital compass, because when diving into the digital decade compass, we saw a role for authorities, local authorities, in actually all pillars. However, the KPIs that are in this slide also they are important indicators for the state of the digital decade. They showed more distance to the local practice and mandates for local governments. And then in the next slide, we try to show in a quick scan we made how the lead and the focus of most of the KPIs are not assigned to a municipal level. And a lot of different ministries are in the lead or involved. And this made clear that the discretionary power is mostly not in the hands of local authorities. However, there is a big field of interest for those local authorities. For us, this also clarified how the distance to the national roadmaps, but also the instruments such as the State of the Digital Decade, is a bit more on a distance for our local practice. And this made us shift to the focus to, at least for municipalities, more impactful part of the digital decade, the digital rulebook. The former speaker already mentioned it. And therefore we focused on unraveling the digital rulebook. The VNG started a program, next slide please, in 2023. And we started working on, oh, sorry, one slide back, if possible, use. Oh, something went wrong there. No problem. We started on a strategic program based on 3 pillars. The 3 pillars I will start to tell you more about are actually focusing on impact assessments on legislation, also impact assessments on the digital infrastructure, and then I will end the presentation with coming back to the first pillar, the latest developments on the pillar about intergovernmental cooperation. And then the first thing we noticed looking into the digital rulebook was that it was quite comprehensive. So there are a lot of different acts and directives trickling down at the municipal level. And second, we found that a lot of the acts and directives could be bundled because of the substantive coherence in the topics they addressed. This led to an approach in our program the VNG is working on, whereby we worked on 20 relevant different laws, but put them in 6 clusters. You see the 6 clusters on this slide. And then next slide. We look into the approach and it contained an intensive collaboration with representatives of over 60 municipalities. And for every cluster, we organized 5 focus groups to investigate possible implications for implementation. And in the end of every cycle, we made sure that we validated results and also presented our findings in an intergovernmental supervisory committee. Next slide, please. And this approach actually resulted in not only 6 reports and some webinars, but also, most importantly, it resulted in a lot of preliminary work for an integrated roadmap for implementation, as we call it, and which is going to be very helpful in the next phase I'm going to talk about later. Maybe a small spoiler on the results. As I just mentioned, the coherence between the topics in the digital rulebook made us conclude that for implementation, we must take into account that the interlinkage on 3 main issues, for us being the educational requirements in all the acts and directives, the monitoring and compliancy requirements, and also we propose added value on an integrated vendor strategy for public procurement. The previous speaker also mentioned this. More on the results and reports you can find online. I think we can share the link later. And then going to the next slide. The third deliverable in the VNG program is focusing on an analysis of the impact of the digital decade on our common digital infrastructure. We plan to publish the results by the beginning of next year. And we aim to use the insights for the enhancement of future development of our common digital infrastructure in an intergovernmental context. And this is important. This also leads me to the next slide and the third point of today. It leads us to the pillar of the program focusing on intergovernmental cooperation. So VNG was putting effort in intertwining the digital rulebook, but also the digital decade in itself, in the national digitalization strategy, the Dutch digitalization strategy, the NDS. Next slide, please. And we see this strategy, it was an initiative of our former Deputy Minister of Digitalization. And last year, he acknowledged that in order to make the transition towards a resilient and flexible digital government, but also society, different levels of government must work closely together. In the strategy, we used the metaphor of a house in which in different levels of government are represented in different rooms. And obviously, if every room keeps buying in and designing its own interfaces, standards, but also implementation tools, this deteriorates interoperability, but also resilience. And in the light of rising geopolitical tensions and the impact of digitalization on inhabitants, this realization led to an extensive collaboration, which we started just last year. So all levels of government agreed on the condition that we secure this domain of digitalization on a political level. And therefore, we have established a structural intergovernmental consultation on digitalization at a political level. And we see that it works in the metaphor of the house. It functions as a sort of residence association. So this consultation is composed by 3 ministries, being the Ministry of Economic Affairs, the Ministry of Interior and Justice and Security, but also 3 associations, being the associations of the provinces, the water boards, and municipalities. And last but not least, we also are joined by the association of the big executive bodies in the Netherlands. And every level is mandated to work on the national strategy, on the 6 priorities of the national strategy, and discuss policy issues, but also implementation and financial issues. And then the next slide shows the 6 priorities. When we look into them, we see an overlap with the Digital Decade Compass and also KPIs. And every topic has a local translation at the level of implementation requirements, but also strategic goals. For instance, the standardization of processes of digital services. We try to make them standardized at all government levels, but also, of course, the municipal level. And another topic we are working on is on unlocking data, local data, to work to, and also working towards national cloud infrastructure. And then on these topics, we also aim to work out a comprehensive plan for the implementing of the Digital Decade rulebook. And our approach of the impact analysis, as mentioned before, will be super useful starting point for this. And we also hope this functions as a coordinating vehicle on the Digital Decade. And then the next slide, which is also almost the last slide. I think you have to click any further because then, yes. Because I would like to share with you, in addition to the 6 priorities we've showed, it is also good to mention that these 4 interventions are formulated to help in achieving the common goals. And also here we see that the interlinkage with the Digital Decade is inevitable. Excuse me. And then the next slide, I hope I was able to give a brief overview on the way the Digital Decade is part of our local, but also national agenda. And I'm looking forward to get in touch in case my presentation led to any more questions.
Thank you very much, Sophie. So this is very useful for us to hear this analysis, and we will for sure taking into account in our reflection. Our second city input comes from Bulgaria. I'm pleased to welcome Ivan Goyachev, Deputy Mayor for Digitalization at Sofia and co-chair of the Living in EU Digital Assembly. He will present ideas on metric for local digital transformation based on Sofia use of Lordimas. Ivan, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for the invitation. Happy to be with you, and I'm particularly happy that this meeting became online, so that it underlines the digital inclusion also goals of the Digital Decade. Everyone can be together without the hassle of traveling around the globe. So for Sofia City and my role also as a mayor of digitalization and innovation, we had the challenge to assess how are we doing. I'm 2 years on the job, and coming from the private sector actually. So where is the city? What is the digital maturity of the city, and how should we approach our path to raising the level of digital readiness and maturity? Lordimas proved to be a very useful tool, not only for our understanding of the situation, but also to support our efforts in the city council, even for decisions of what needs to be done. And I quickly want to go, I don't have a presentation intentionally actually, but trying to be, to not distract you with slides, but just on the messages here. It turned out that Lordimas surprised us with that our level of infrastructure security is outstanding. We didn't think so at all. Then the service design, service delivery is digitally optimized and native, which is, how to say, well accepted also by community, by people, and by the public administration. And then what we knew is not okay, and the tool confirmed it, is the lack of unified local data platform and harmonized policies about data management. So these three I would highlight as the most important from the Lordimas output. And then, having in mind these outputs, we devised a strategy to work on them. But when we thought about how we should achieve the goals of having a very sophisticated data platform that we can do data-driven decisions and so on top of it, we talked about who is going to lead these efforts, who is going to implement this together with the partners of the municipality, like businesses. And the answer is, even in that, is in Lordimas. The advice from there comes for having a chief data officer who can lead these efforts and organize them around himself. It looked to us that we also need a team that has to be responsible for innovating on behalf of our citizens from within the municipality. And here I will extend it even further. When I had conversations with other cities, how they are doing it, it seems that the happy path, or the happy cities, are those that have secured kind of internal skills, internal talent, data engineers, or IT experienced people who are either working on the payroll of the municipality, on the city, or they are on the so-called publicly owned companies that are owned by the city, and they work for them. Here, this works for those cities that have good how to say, good budgets, or that don't have enough I would say very strict limits on the payroll, the salary sizes. But when I talked also with small cities, not capital cities, not region centers and so on, those cities actually really suffer. They don't have enough skilled employees, and then they work closely, of course, with businesses to implement their own strategies. But the question here remains, like, who innovates on behalf of the citizens? Who is asking the right questions to ensure that the implemented solutions are correct or are on the quality that is expected? And then imagine all those solutions are implemented, all these beautiful, let's call them data highways or data spaces, everything integrated, showing up with the beautiful graphs. Who is protecting those systems with the security that is needed for that? If they stop, if they got hacked, or all that stuff, while the important actually functions of those are important for the city operations. And these cities that are limited by their budgets, I would say that they really have a struggling situation. We also, I'm talking about them, but we are also in this situation that our salary levels are in the low. We cannot increase them on the market levels as simple as that. And this is also my message to the European authorities here that are listening. Like maybe we should include a special chapter on how are we building actually skilled employees inside the municipality that are operating on the level that is expected from the citizens, because they use commercial products. They know the Netflix quality, they know the, let's say, Amazon delivery and ability to be always there in one day. This expectation is coming from our cities from our citizens to our cities, and we have to address that. We need to operate in the same way, like efficiently operating organizations in the same way that private organizations, private businesses are doing it. And for this to be solved, maybe there are some legislative measures, regulations, requirements, because it seems like we have covered the rest of it. I mean, all these initiatives that we're all working on together in the Eurocities initiatives, the Living in EU, the standards, the frameworks, they are very, very, very helpful. But we need people that will ensure the implementation is right from inside the city authorities. So talking about this, it doesn't need to be a lot more cost actually, because we have some examples here from our city. We were able to implement the open data platform just in 1 month, open source technology, configure, put some design, and start collecting data in 1 month by a single engineer actually. And this, if it was done by public tenders, the heavy process, would have been probably at least 4 to 6 months of effort by multiple people. And then the cost of it would have been probably 10 times more than the salary for the month of that person. So it is possible to achieve a lot less, a lot more quality with a lot less cost, just by having the right people on the job. Same is with the security, cybersecurity. We are talking about, let's say, military defense, 5% commitment from countries on a country level, but we don't talk about cybersecurity commitments. And you can imagine how disproportional is the cost of like having a single breach and all the equipment, all the data encrypted, and you lose your operations for months maybe. So one salary, one big salary of an engineer might solve that problem very very well. This is my message more or less, and now I'm deviating from the topic that was initially announced, but I wanted to use the opportunity for us to again say we're on the right path. Our tools and frameworks are working well. Digital identities, digital wallets, all these initiatives, digital inclusion, forums, and citizen engagement and stakeholder engagements. We might be missing only this part, to have the employees of the city level authorities to be on the same skill level as on the private sector. And I know and I understand that I'm talking about a serious revolution here, but at least I wanted to state this as I'm hearing from many cities.
Thank you very much, Ivan, for those insights. Thank you very much for this presentation. So our third and final city inputs come from France with Sophie Woodville, Innovation Project Manager at Bordeaux Métropole and Chairman of Eurocities Digital Forum. He will present the Digital Divide Observatories and its human-centric approach. Sophie, the floor is yours.
Sound check, I suppose, as everyone else. I'm guessing you can all hear me okay. Perfect, thank you. I won't have slides either, so you can even drop the PowerPoint presentation if you want. You're just going to have to bear with my voice and face. Thank you very much for having us from Bordeaux Métropole, southwest of France. Thanks for including us in this afternoon's Connect University. I'm going to talk about a tool that we have put together here in Bordeaux Métropole. It's called the Digital Inequality Observatory. Just so everyone has kind of an idea of the perspective I'm talking from, Bordeaux Métropole is the metropolitan area around the city of Bordeaux, which everybody worldwide known brand in the southwestern part of Bordeaux of France. Sorry, we are 28 cities, various sizes, but overall a little over 800,000 inhabitants. Just so everybody has kind of an idea of the scale. We started this Digital Inequality Observatory a couple of years ago. The idea was to create a tool to measure and understand digital divide on our territory with the aim of identifying populations who are facing difficulties and then deploying targeted actions in response. I think the results are quite interesting. Also, that's why I kind of gave you some metrics, because I think we're not a huge city metropolitan area, but we're not tiny either. I think it's probably very representative of what happens in an average size city in Europe. And then we also have results for each of our 28 municipalities. So that kind of gives perspective on very smaller municipalities and a bit larger. We can see a clear potential for replication in other European cities of this observatory. That's also why we want to talk about it. I'm not going to drown anyone in numbers. I have the full observatory results. I have tons of slides, of course, that I can share with all of you. If you're interested, I just wanted to give maybe a couple of figures. So 1 out of 5 of our inhabitants have a negative perception toward digital. They see it as an increase in complexity in their daily lives. I think that's not to give everyone a cold shower, but I am going to give some facts and figures here. 50% are wary of not being able to spot fake news or disinformation. And these are from our 2024 study, so before the whole AI kicking in. So I think our next observatory might have even worse numbers. And then there's one last figure I wanted to share with you, which is an interesting thread to potentially pull and see how we can harness this figure, is that 75% of our inhabitants are digital helpers. So 75% of us become digital helpers towards a neighbor, a grandparent, a friend, whatnot. Following this observatory which was very quantity driven, so with really figures that we wanted to have, we also did an observatory with a qualitative study. Basically, we did some portraits of some inhabitants who accepted to be published. We did some in-depth interviews, and we also have this other part of the observatory that we can share, which is more the feeling of our population toward digital. I'm not going to go into too many details, but I do want to share with you a few extracts of this. For example, we have Christophe, who is 45 years old, who is actually white collar, and he says, "I keep it inside me, but I feel anger." We have Asna, who says, "I see everyone typing easily on the keyboard. Why can't I?" Joanne says, "I would need to get younger to be able to understand it." Sonia says, "I'm drowning in information. I don't know which way to go." Vasila says, "I can't count the number of times I had to call my son to help me." Brigitte says, "I'm retired. I am a widow. Who do I ask?" Mary says, "I am part of the digital third age, and I am 31 years old." So I do feel like, and there's a whole lots of pages in that observatory, which is the qualitative part. I wanted to share those with you because this is what cities face every day. I think it's always very interesting to go to a public library for us to host events locally and to talk with everyone. This is the reality on the ground, and this is the reality that cities see on a daily basis. And looping back on what was told earlier and the work that we do at EuroCities, and also the work Federica at CMR and Ivan in the city of Sofia, I think all of those add up to something that we need to share collectively, is that all of this is the reality on the ground, but it's the reality of a lot of people on our continent. And when a significant portion of Europeans are digitally excluded or feel like they are digitally excluded, it is our continent's first line of defense that falls. Because if we don't have a common knowledge, a common understanding of what digital is, if we don't share a common understanding of a digital culture, that's what we call it, the basics, the understanding of how it works, what it is, what's fake, what's not fake. If we don't have this shared culture, it's our first line of defense that falls. And a shared European culture of digital is not an option. It's really a necessity for all European citizens. This is something that we defend at EuroCities at Bordeaux Métropole level, because we feel that this knowledge transfer can only happen through proximity and as close as possible to each person's reality, the persons that we talked to for this observatory, the people Ivan talks to in Sofia, and all of our cities at continent level is the reality every day. And this is why local actors, and particularly cities, must be recognized and supported as indispensable allies in this fight. And we are very thankful to be invited today and to be able to talk about implementing this digital decade on the ground. Cities represent an essential link in the chain of sharing this common digital culture. And we are capable of transmitting this in daily lives of European citizens through networks such as EuroCities or CEMR. And thanks to the involvement of member cities, we are able to share best practices. We are able to take some time to meet, discuss, exchange. But not all cities have this luxury of being able to come this afternoon, take some time and talk with you, for example, and express all this. If we look at the vast number of municipalities in Europe, not all of them have the means and the ends to do that. And this is why we feel, and through the EuroCities network, we feel there is a responsibility, of course, also of cities driving this, cities who already have things. So we have talking about the observatory, but there's lots of other tools and things that are in place. And we need to see how we can disseminate these good actions, these best practices, and turn this intention into reality. And for that, the only way to do it is, and I will end with this, it is imperative that Europe fund the establishment of city consortiums, and that there is direct funding from Europe to cities. And while, of course, we value the collaborative relationships that we have as cities or metropolitan areas with national governments, with our regional authorities, direct access to Europe funding is essential for many compelling reasons. For first, politically, of course, we need to recognize cities as legitimate actors in Europe governance, reinforce the principle of multi-level governance. It's essential, and it's within our continent's construction and values. And also from an efficiency perspective, to reduce bureaucratic delays, of course, and to make sure that it allows cities to respond more rapidly to local challenges, because we are on the ground and we need to have the agility and to ensure that resources reach urban areas without being diluted or redirected depending on the priorities from all the other layers potentially. And then we do believe, and we are very thankful for this dialogue that we can have directly with Europe from cities through networks such as EuroCities, and also directly from cities to the Commission or to the Parliament. This is essential to have an unmediated dialogue with European institutions for cities to facilitate also better understanding from each other, from the urban realities and from us, the EU realities, of course, of the institutions as well. And fostering this knowledge and this exchange between cities across Europe with European institutions is essential. And to go back to the people on the ground, to go back to the Christophe, the Brigitte, the Mary, and the Joanne, whom I mentioned earlier. This is their reality, and our role is really to make sure that their reality becomes a little lighter when it comes to using digital. And at your disposal for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie, for the clear message, and thanks to all the speakers in this panel. We will now take 15 minutes for a coffee break, and please be back at 4 p.m. for the third panel. So welcome back, everyone. We now turn to our third panel dedicated to practical solutions and accelerators to strengthen multi-level governance and support local implementation. Our first speaker is Marek Bobis from European Committee of Regions. He will discuss on how tools like Lordimas can contribute to the digital decade governance and monitoring. Marek, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I hope everybody can hear me. Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for having me today with you, and for having the European Committee of the Regions. Next slide, please. I'll speak about Lordimas. Lordimas is a local and regional digital maturity assessment tool, and when we start any presentation on Lordimas, we always help ourselves with this nice overview of the digital decade targets. You can see the 4 cardinal points of the digital decade. You can also see digital public services, but all these targets are at national level. So what is missing here is subnational level. So we do not systematically collect data at subnational level. So at either local or regional level. And this is where Lordimas comes in handy. Next slide, please. This is the dashboard of Lordimas. So we've seen already today 3 different examples of how to monitor achievement of targets towards digital transformation at subnational level. We've seen examples of Italy, Austria, France, and when I said that there is no comprehensive strategy or systematic gathering of data, collection of data at local and regional level in the whole EU, this is where we try to create a LORDIMAS to fill this gap, to have a comprehensive image, at least at qualitative level, so not fully quantitative, where we stand, where the cities and regions stand in their path towards digital transformation. Next slide, please. So what is LORDIMAS? LORDIMAS, when we started thinking about creating this new tool, we knew that there is a fatigue of monitoring. We knew that cities and regions would be overwhelmed with providing data about different policies. So we thought of presenting a tool that would give a reward to those who participate in LORDIMAS. So LORDIMAS has developed into a comprehensive tool that has 4 main objectives. First, it tries to evaluate. Then it tries to compare the results of this evaluation. Then share best or bad practices, and learn from the policy recommendations that will be automatically displayed upon submission of data. When we speak about evaluation, we have gathered information into 7 clusters, into governance, service design, data management, interoperability, the technical side of interoperability, technology, service delivery, and networking. Then after evaluating, any participant, city or region can compare these results. So they can present They can look onto the dashboard, an interactive dashboard. They will have an instant overview where they stand compared to themselves over time, compared to other cities, compared to other member states, and so forth. Then they have a repository of good practices where we provide the opportunity for cities to present what they have achieved. We based on the submission of the good practice, we may anonymize some data in order for others to learn from best practices of others, but also to learn from bad practices as well. Because what we also try to foster is how to learn from mistakes of other cities and regions, not to replicate the same mistakes. And of course, as I said, learn based on policy recommendations. So we also try to make a list of automated policy recommendations that will serve as a basis for future policy making. Next slide, please. How was this created? We have already spoken about Living in EU initiative in previous presentations, but I have to underline the importance of the Living in EU as a grassroots initiative that was originally supported by the European Commission. This initiative has given birth to many activities, including monitoring. So we have a couple of associations. We have Eurocities that were already presented today. We have CMR. We have European Network of Living Labs, ERIN, Open and Agile Smart Cities, but mainly ESPON. That is the program in form of a European grouping of territorial cooperation that is behind. Is a mastermind behind this tool. They are also hosting the network, the server, and all the data in their servers. So together with those associations, we created this system of monitoring and measuring, and we put it forward at the services of cities and regions. Next slide, please. Any city or region can, for free, participate in LORDIMAS. you can type in this web address. It will guide you to the ESPON web page. This is a shortened link. Next slide, please. And you will be greeted at the homepage with this nice overview, where you can either participate or you can explore what is already in Lordimas. When you click on participate, next slide, please. You will be greeted with two options. Either you can assess your digital maturity, so you can take the whole test, or you can promote your best practices. And with uploading your best practice, it will be then saved in best practices a part of the website. Next slide, please. In order to have comprehensive data and well-structured data, we had to come up with the methodology of measuring different aspects of digital transformation. As I said, we have clustered different aspects of digital transformation into 7 clusters. And for each cluster, you have different questions. For example, here in governance, you have several questions to which there are always 5 possible answers. Whether, for example, your public administration has a policy which digital transition objectives are directly linked to green transition, and then you can answer either not at all. So that means that you are right at the beginning of the digital transformation path. Then whether you are already considering having this policy, you are already developing or adopting it, or is it already in operation in one or few service sectors, or it's fully operational in several or most service sectors. So for each question, you have these 5 options, and of course these answers will then accumulate and will result in a final score. Next slide, please. Once you complete your questionnaire, you fill it completely in, then you can go to the compare webpage or dashboard, where you will see the results of assessments of all participants that have actively participated, and you can compare actually what has been achieved. When you look at this dashboard, when you look at the map with the diamonds, every diamond represents a participant, and then the maturity level, which you see at the bottom left page, the maturity score always reflects the diamonds that are displayed on the map. Of course, you can adjust, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, and then the maturity level will of course change. Next slide, please. When I'm speaking about comparing, you can make comparisons, as I already said, between different cities. So you can compare your municipality, your region against other cities from the same member state, or you can compare municipalities by size, by type. You can make every kind of comparison. Here, as an example, I made a comparison between technology, digital maturity between Portugal and Spain. Why I have chosen Portugal? Because thanks to a technical support instrument project, we have more than 150 Portugal municipalities covered in Lordimas, which is a quite good sample to make some conclusions. And then we have Spain on the right side of the webpage, which is also leading in providing input into Lordimas. So you see that based on the data that we have received, we can make quite comprehensive comparisons. Next slide, please. As I said, you can share best practices. Here we have from 15 to 20 best practices collected with our experts, Lordimas experts. To date, we have 12 experts that are helping us for free to develop this database. Next slide, please. And then you can learn from policy recommendations. So these recommendations were based on results of the past Digizer project supported under the ESPON program. And these policy recommendations are in a general, assessment or advice how to proceed towards digital transformation. Next slide, please. When it comes to digital decade reporting, ESPON is also providing at the end of each calendar year a final report where they try to assess the digital maturity or the development of digital transformation of cities and regions. And at the next slide, you will see an example of such an assessment. So we had in 2024 only 100 participants because the whole tool started at the end of the year 2023. And here you can see the distribution of different levels of digital maturity in each of the clusters. And next slide is also a representation, for example, of how public authorities manage their data. As a conclusion, I would like to say that this tool has been developed thanks to the support of the European Commission and voluntary participation of associations. And I have to underline that the Living in You initiative as a grassroots initiative, a decentralized initiative, it was a key success factor for this. And we try also with the Committee of the Regions to support these decentralized initiatives because these are closest to the citizens. They know how to best reflect to citizens' needs, and we have to continue these kind of projects to foster digital transformation in the European Union. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marek. So always good to hear about Lordima's monitoring tools and best practice, and the review is for sure a good opportunity for us to explore synergy with the Digital Decade Policy Program. Our next speaker is Jan Wester, Director of the Citiverse EDIC. He will present how EDIC supports local digital transformation and multi-level cooperation. And we will go through also the early lessons learned. Jan, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to take you through our first steps realizing the LDT Citiverse EDIC, which is an EDIC dedicated to the virtualization of all processes in cities. And as you might know, the EDIC, it is a new instrument, a new European instrument. It is a legal entity in Europe. But actually, it's owned by the member states. So it's not owned by the European Commission. European Commission is, of course, involved, but as an observer. So it's owned by the member states itself. So it's actually a more sort of bottom-up process. And I think that's very good, makes it more tangible. And this EDIC especially focus on the virtualization of processes within cities and regions is, I think, very, very much tangible and very, very regional and local oriented as well. So we've got 3 levels here present: the European level, pan-European multi-country projects, national level, which is very much focused on the importance of the policy value, and then we have the concrete, tangible value from the cities. And next slide, please. So our mission of this EDIC is quite broad. The main mission is to create a common European infrastructure of interoperable data platforms and services for networked local digital twins. And that is, of course, the topic where most cities are working on right now if it comes to virtualization of processes. But the end aim, the end ambition is, of course, to build a European Citiverse, which is very much immersive. So it also involves all AI technologies and all the XR technologies. And this is something that we don't actually know exactly what a Citiverse is, so we are also exploring things. But I must emphasize that the main focus of the EDIC is not so much on developing and exploring and innovating new things. It's very much on getting things implemented and getting things done. So the focus of our mission is, if I put it in very simple words, it's less design time, so less development time, and more actually run time. So we need also more validation from practice, and this is where we actually unify the European ecosystems of cities, but also of other stakeholders within this arena. And we do that through developing multi-country projects, so that we are sure that it's always a pan-European interoperable solution that we are focusing at, or that we're working at. And maybe even more important, apart from the solutions that we are working at, it's very important to have the capacity available in the cities, a sort of minimum standard. And we are actually also using Lordimas to come to the assessment of cities. Are you actually ready to digital twin? And are you actually ready to go to this virtualization processes of your city? And the main reason why virtualization is so important is that most challenges that cities are facing are very integral of nature, by nature. And so it needs a combination of mobility models, energy models, building models, etc. They need to be combined to be able to have climate adaptive urban development or urban planning in place. So these integral challenges actually ask for a way to tackle the complexity that is involved. And of course, digital twinning will help in getting a sort of a common operational picture for the different stakeholders in the different domains. But maybe even more important is that the digital twins will help in tackling also a growing lack of resources. Lack of resources, it's critical resources, but also resources just to build houses or to do other things, and also manpower. The virtualization of processes actually tackles this and gets us, makes it able for cities to get into the circular economy, where we are very efficient with our resources and can reuse all kinds of stuff there. So virtualize all these processes. That is why we are actually doing this. And doing this, then it's key, if you want to create scale, to be interoperable, not to be dependent, not to have lock-ins with certain providers, but be interoperable, be replicable, and also to secure and to ensure the portability of services that you're actually applying in your city. And this means that we are basing ourselves, the interoperability, on international open standards, that we will secure European values and the digital sovereignty as well within in several layers. Could I have the next slide, please? So at this moment, we have 14 member states. There's one member state just joined us. That's Germany. So actually, this slide, I need to update this slide, but there's 14 member states joining us. And as you see, the signatory member states are on a national level. And if we are talking about digital sovereignty, for instance, it's very important that on a national level, it is important to be able to have the policy value and the policy urgencies very clear, because otherwise there will be no investments from a national level. And I think digital sovereignty is one of them that is very important. But the topics that on a national level, the countries are focusing on will be very much on, national registries, availability of those of that data, but also on public cloud, etc., edge computing, things like that. And these are the topics that actually exceed the abilities and the interest also of cities. whereas cities are very much focused on implementing services, on getting services done for the citizens, and they are very much focused on platforms, the intelligence that is that has to be in place. So in the way we organize this, and also in the way we cooperate with private partners, is that the basics, the fundamental basics, are very much on a European attention level, national attention level. These are, the bigger companies as well, but this is very much on a must-have basis. So you must be able to secure your continuity. On a city level, it's a bit different. It's more like that the EDIC actually helps cities to do their homework and actually define for themselves what are the requirements we actually put to be served by these private partners. And this is homework that cities have not done for years. So if we do this in a common way, it's also very helpful for private partners, because then it's not one city just defining how it would like to be served, what the requirements are, what the interoperability requirements are here. But then it's, it's a European market actually that does that. And that is very helpful for the private partners involved, because they also need this interoperability to work together. It's not just one solution that fits all. It's very often a combination of solutions that have to be mingled into a sort of service for the cities, and interoperability helps there a lot. So actually what you're doing is to have a sort of public basis for the digital infrastructure, secure the capacity of cities, and by doing that, creating a very helpful fundament for a thriving application ecosystem, public-private organizations. So that's actually how we are going to work here. Next slide, please. And the European Commission is very helpful in also supplying us with lots of things that have been developed over the past few years, maybe five, 6 years. So there were several programs like the local digital twin toolbox that has been developed, but also the data space for smart communities. We have Lordimas already mentioned, but we also have a couple of Citiverse projects that are now running. We have test facilities that have been developed, and most of these projects, and I think it's a total of maybe 120 million euros that has been spent, and most of the deliverables will actually end up in the EDIC. And for us, the nice task to change that into a sustainable exploitation model, so that it will actually be used by the cities, and it's actually be used by the regions. And what we will do here is that we actually make a sort of maybe a sort of city customer journey, where we start with the awareness, inspiration, etc. Then the assessment of the readiness, the digital readiness, where Lordimas comes in place again, and then the implementation, where among others the local digital twin toolbox comes in place as an instrument, but also the scaling at the end. And there we will develop what we call a network of sort of sandbox alliance, I would call it, where we actually make the validation of all solutions from practice, which is very important. So it's not designing from a academic point of view, but it's actually the validation from practice in the sandboxes of the cities themselves. This is what we will be focusing on. And here, actually, the EDIC also is an instrument to close the gap between what is being developed from the horizon and what is actually being implemented and operationalized in the basic the primary processes of cities. So the EDIC is very much a validation instrument here. Could I have the next sheet, please? And what we're doing here is, you see at the top, you see all kinds of European programs. So what I deliver, we will turn into services. You see here a time scheme, our roadmap. We will start with very straightforward services, helping cities in their digital twin activities, etc. Then move on, federate, innovate, and make it more complex in the next year. And in the end, we will also incorporate more AI and XR technologies, so we could actually scale these things towards what we could then maybe call, you know, the Citiverse that we're actually aiming for. And at the basis, you'll see that this will be facilitated by infrastructure. So we will also connect to the AI factories, the network of AI factories, but also the cloud, the public cloud that will be hosted, for instance, by Luxembourg and other countries which already have developed it. So this is basically what we have been working on. And so if I should wrap it up in short, I would say we go from more from design time to more runtime. So it's actually making things work and applicable. That's what we do with the EDIC.
Thank you very much, Jan, for this very comprehensive presentation. So our third speaker is Marit Palovirta, Deputy Director General of Connect Europe. She will provide insights on how industry partnership can support coordination with local authorities. Marit, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. So just a few words about Connect Europe for those who don't know us yet. So Connect Europe is a trade association based in Brussels, and we represent the leading European telecom operators. And as we are here talking about the digital decade targets, which is of course all about providing availability of infrastructure to everybody, as well as then making sure that there is demand, I would also add that our members, their investment footprint at the moment represents about 70% of all the capital expenditure in telecom in Europe, and they serve about 270 million Europeans. So if we could move on to the first slide, please. Thank you. So I've been with great interest listening to the discussions and previous speakers, and I have concluded that I may be the only private sector speaker here, or one of the few. So I would like to take a few minutes just to try and share our views on the digital decade targets and try and explain to you how do we approach this as the private sector. And first and foremost, so Connect Europe, we have from the beginning endorsed the digital decade targets. We think that it's a very useful kind of a shared aspirational goal. And also it creates a very nice policy framing around the connectivity and the digital ecosystem. So all those bits and pieces that need to work together for us to then achieve meaningful results. And if we look at the targets more specifically and the program, of course, so for our sector, for the telecom sector, we really look at this from two perspectives. First of all, of course, you know, there's the digital infrastructure availability. And there, I must say, we're making quite good progress. So if you look at even those advanced connectivity KPIs, 5G, gigabit connectivity, etc., we're making quite good progress. But equally important is recognizing the demand for connectivity and digital services. So the importance of demand and the uptake of these services. And I heard actually from many of you, from the municipalities especially, that this is something that some of you are struggling with. So this is very important because, of course, without demand, the ecosystem doesn't work. And unfortunately, also when we look at the KPIs for demand specifically and uptake, so they are lagging behind the availability of services. Now, if we then move and take into account the local dimension, so here we've heard a lot about local governments and their role in achieving the digital decade targets. So of course, our members and we collaborate to the extent that we can with local governments. And we see, of course, the role of local governments as crucial to accelerate deployment. So local governments are engaged in very practical matters, giving permits to deploy broadband and other things at the local level, but then also to help develop new use cases and to drive demand. So a couple of the previous speakers were talking about citizen-centric services and how do we make sure that the different services actually serve the needs of the citizens or perhaps SMEs in a certain region. So we think that it's very important to make sure that indeed we do develop services and provide services that are relevant, that we jointly, in some shape or form, come together and discuss what might work. And from our point of view, of course, different kinds of public-private partnerships and also EU funding have played a very enabling role in bringing us together with different stakeholders. So if we move to the next slide, please. I will talk about two examples, so projects that where we as Connect Europe and our members have been involved in. And the first one is here. It's about 5G for smart communities. This is all about making sure that we are advancing the 5G agenda and trying to create a platform. So not only a virtual online platform, but also a platform in a sense of bringing people together to promote 5G best practices in a smart community environment. And smart community, of course, is a kind of broad concept. So this will then entail many industry verticals, from healthcare to education to local governments, etc. And this project, so it is a 3-year project, and we're actually coming to the end of it. And Connect Europe, we have been a partner from the beginning. And it is funded by EU funds, so the Connecting Europe facility, which is very familiar to our colleagues from DG Connect, as they are overseeing the deployment of this funding instrument and the funds. But this has been the framing, and our role as the private sector in this project then has been really to support on the project content. So to try and bring insights, whether it's from the business, the commercial use case perspective, or from the technical use case perspective, so to try and complement the discussions that either municipalities or other players are having and come from the private sector perspective. We've also been communicating very broadly on this within our community, so in the private sector connectivity ecosystem, if you like. So there's been really an effort to try and bring more stakeholders together. And as we are now kind of approaching the end, so we already have some quite impressive outcomes, and I'll just share some of the top lines, the top messages here with you. So this platform, not only online, as I said, but through the different conferences, capacity building sessions that you, by the way, can find on the website, the recordings. So it has attracted over 1,000 members until today from 33 European countries and from 5 industry verticals. And as I already said, so the verticals in questions here are very close to the local community's agenda. So, you know, smart city context, or indeed also agriculture and public safety. And from our point of view, if I was to think about, well, what were really the benefits? I mean, the biggest benefit has been the exchanges and the open door towards collaboration between the different partners. So municipalities, of course, ourselves, different other actors from regions, broadband competence offices, and of course the European Commission. So through these different activities to come together, to get to know each other, but also then to have a chance to perhaps, you know, have new ideas and indeed take some of these existing best practices and try and replicate them in another region or in another context. So that's about the availability and the way we have contributed towards this, also with the kind of the concept of the digital decade targets, of course, in the background. And if we then move to this next slide, please. The second component that I wanted to discuss today is skills, because it is something that is critically important for telecom operators, like for many other sectors. But it is something that I don't think so often debate in the Brussels policy debate, because it's something that everybody agrees on and something that requires, of course, local engagement. But I wanted to bring up the skills, because it is truly critical. And when we talk to our members outside the policy discussion, actually their top 5 concerns often include the lack of skilled employees, sorry. So lack of skills, lack of technical skills. But then, of course, the other side of the coin is the demand. So lack of skills within the population, the citizens, maybe SMEs, who are not taking on services such as 5G because they don't quite understand why they would need it or what to do with it. So that's a little bit about the skills agenda. And we have, well, 2 types of initiatives, really. So, of course, our members, operators, they are, some of them large companies, and they have their corporate social responsibility initiatives. And many of them have the skills program for their specific geography to try and address some of the challenges that I just mentioned. The other side is something that we as an association do in Brussels, again, thanks to EU funding. So we've had a couple of projects with Uni Europa, which is in fact the European Federation governing the national trade unions. So we've had a couple of joint projects with them to try and understand the issues with digital skills and employment. How can we develop that? But then also the second project was more about bringing together the digital transition with the sustainability agenda. So that those are the kind of things, again, where we find that are very useful, because we have feedback from the employees organization, and we can bring together their concerns and what they have observed, for example, to do with new technologies such as AI or IoT that might be concerning to some constituencies. And we can then jointly work on these and let's say increase the mutual understanding. If I was to highlight a couple of examples from our operators' initiatives, so maybe just to take, for example, the Telecom Italia example. So they have trained more than 1 million citizens in Italy already through their program focusing on digital literacy and also ICT workforce development. Their partnerships have been with universities and research institutions. In the Nordics, then, on the other hand, Telenor, a company that is present in several Nordic markets, they have focused more on the emerging technologies. So really trying to improve AI skills within the employee base. So upskilling 75,000 employees in machine learning and automation. And there's also then, of course, an aspect that these employees will have the skills and they will then have the capacity to move within different roles in that company or indeed in other organizations later on. So if we move on to my final slide, please. So all in all, from the private sector's point of view, so the digital decade targets, as I already said, so they have truly, I think, brought together the different sides of the connectivity ecosystem. And for those of you who were present many, many years ago already, before the digital decade targets, we of course had the DESI index. I think it was the Digital Economy and Society Index. And there, for example, the KPIs were much more narrow and basic. So we would be measuring connectivity, but not so much demand. So we are really very pleased that we have taken this ecosystemic approach. And we also now look increasingly at things like the AI, the emerging technologies, cloud, and also effectively use this tool to measure innovation and not only the rollout of innovation, but also then the uptake of innovation with SMEs and companies and public sector organizations. The second point is about the public-private partnerships and also EU funding as key enablers. So we certainly, as an association, find this a very convenient opening being here in Brussels to work with partners that probably would not be our partners would it not be for EU funding initiatives and different public-private partnerships programs. So this has really been something that has been instrumental. And then more on the tool side, as we are talking about tools and accelerators here. So different kinds of observatories, best practice sharing platforms like the 5G project. They, of course, are excellent, bringing in new ideas and also bringing in different people, as I already said. I also wanted to highlight the role of regions and regional coalitions in the digital skills and jobs. So as we have a challenge in the sector and our members are present not only in capital cities, but also in regions, that of course different kinds of regional initiatives, whether it's through educational institutions or otherwise, are crucially important to also advance the skills agenda. So thank you very much. And again, happy to take questions if there is time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marit, for this very clear presentation. So now we are welcoming Hélène Kopman from A5 to have a presentation of the AI tool for the local level. Thank you, Hélène. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Hugues. And of course, I'm the last speaker, I think, in this long agenda before we get the people in the audience to also interact with us. So it's very good to be able to have that moment also. So I'm Helene Schaapman from the AI office and the unit AI for Societal Good. Please, next slide. So we already heard this from previous speakers, but particularly Jan Wester, because here I particularly want to dive into the acceleration we have around this ecosystem, the local digital twin Citiverse European Digital Infrastructure Consortium, also called EDIC. So this is a vision that we built together with the EDIC consortium. I mean, so the EDIC is basically a infrastructure consortium for services that will be delivered to cities that consists of innovative solutions, particularly around artificial intelligence in our case. And we want these services and solutions to be interoperable. Because if you do have interoperability, it will also create more larger marketplace for the cities and the industry players that will come in here and develop the services around it. The EDIC could have the services, infrastructure service itself as service, but there could also be other services around, and we talked about a few of them with the previous speakers. It's about assessing digital maturity, perhaps helping with procurement and certification to make sure that the services that are being rolled out are actually compliant with certain minimum requirements. So if you look at next slide, you will probably recognize this slide because we saw it previously with Jan, and it's a bit of a duplication, but it also shows that we're aligned, completely aligned here in the project going forward, in the initiative going forward, because this can really be seen as a public-private partnership. You can see on the left-hand side a number of projects that we have been working on for a few years. I think we're in the middle of the development of these projects, more or less. All these projects we're now looking at sort of nurturing and accelerating this Citiverse EDIC ecosystem. We are working together with the members of the EDIC to see how these different projects can really nurture and accelerate the activities, building roadmaps together to see where they fit in the way going forward. So in principle, the projects will produce ways to use high-value data sets that you can build AI models and algorithms around, these will really provide the tools and infrastructure for the digital twins. And the EDIC, through its members, the cities, the member state as well as the cities, will be the parties to point to what use cases are more relevant and produce pilots, either together or in groups of cities together doing pilots, so that we don't duplicate things. We can learn from each other best practices in terms of the pilots and build on each other's experiences. So in next slide, I go in a bit more detail in a few of these projects that we are using to accelerate the ecosystem. So the European data space, nothing can be done in artificial intelligence if you don't have data spaces organized and structured. We have been working in the past on a blueprint for smart cities and communities in terms of data spaces, which produces a catalog of specifications, a reference architecture for these high-value data sets, so that they can be really cross-sectorial and interoperable between them. Building on this initial set of data spaces, we have been undertaking pilots, or 11 of them, that are cross-sectorial, and they are coming to one more work on these pilots, and we will get some experience from them. And in the next slide, we have then a bit more meat on the bone on what we call the EU Local Digital Twin Toolbox. This is the procurement, public procurement that the European Commission is doing on behalf of the EDIC. So it consists of not less than 11 interoperable open source tools that cities can use to produce their own and develop their own digital twins. These tools will help them to connect data from multiple city systems. As we know, cities are complex in character and they have very much different data silos around different departments. This will help them bring that data together, and when doing so, you can then simulate, visualize, and analyze different urban scenarios and optimize the best solution. And that could be like addressing things that are all very common to cities, like water management, optimization of energy grids, addressing traffic, air pollution, and other things. These are very common challenges to cities, that these different scenarios can help the cities optimize the best solution for. And on top of that, we have this immersive part where the Citiverse comes in, where you can engage both the urban planners that will work with these tools and the IT departments in the cities, and the citizen, engage the citizen in the possible solutions, so that you have this co-creation going on there. And this is really a way to really accelerate the digital twins, is to use immersive technology and generative AI tools, so you can have better and easier way to communicate around these tools that sometimes look complex. So in the next slide, so we have a bit of data spaces, and we had a bit of local digital twin initial tools, but you also need to test. I mean, we heard also from previous speakers, you need to understand how this technology is fitting in your infrastructure. What kind of connectivity you need, what kind of infrastructure you need to actually be able to use these tools, and also develop a bit of skills around handling them. And we have a testing and experimentation facility called Sitcom that we bring into this portfolio product now. And we hope that this testing and experimentation facility, which is a very large project involving over 30 parties, will help the cities to test these digital twins and see how they can be deployed within their environment. So this is very exciting new development that we have in our project portfolio. So in the last, I think next slide and last, I would just like to tie back that into what we had in the beginning of the session. I mean, not only we think through this initiative, the Citiverse EDIC and the projects accelerating it, we do deliver on digital decade targets for cities and regional actors here. It will, most of this funding and the projects in motion will actually go to cities. Most of the funding goes to cities. And not only we deliver on the digital decade target in a way, and we can also go in more granularity on how you measure that, but we also very importantly deliver on the Apply AI strategy, which we recently came out with. The Apply AI strategy, and we've seen this in the indicators that Eric showed in the beginning that AI deployment is very low. I mean, it's something like 10 to 15% in different sectors. And the public sector here is a very important sector that the Apply AI strategy is addressing. So we hope also through this initiative that we will be able to create some difference in the adoption of AI in public sectors. So I will close there. Thank you very much. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you very much, Hélène, and thank you for all the speakers for this great contribution. We now move to the interactive part of the workshop. So this is where we invite all the participants to share their view through the Slido survey. And to introduce this session, I give the floor to Sophie Woodville, who will briefly present the feedback from Eurocities Digital Forum in Bordeaux in a few minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi again. Sorry. Well, I'll be really brief. I think thanks to all of the speakers, we had a very full afternoon. Very briefly, and I think Chiara also did a good job of introducing Eurocities. So we are indeed, Bordeaux Métropole is the chairman of the Digital Forum of Eurocities, which works on various. Basically, it's a 360 forum regarding digital. So it does look into all of the aspects that we have talked about this afternoon, from data to AI to prospective as well, of course, and digital citizenship, in which we have the all of the human-centric and digital inclusion approach. And we have different working groups that work on these topics. And it's basically what I was saying earlier. It's cities getting together to exchange best practices to see how we can disseminate them and how we can inspire each other. So if anyone is interested in learning more or joining some working groups or maybe talking to these working groups, feel free to reach out. Happy to join that. Hugues, I don't know if you want to go ahead with the...
Yes, thank you very much, Sophie, again for your second intervention. Lavinia will now guide you through the Slido question. So Alexandro, please launch the polls.
Yeah, okay, so hello everyone, I'm Lavinia and I'm also part of Hugues' team. I will read questions and we will have some results coming up live, so please feel free to start voting. So the first question is essentially focused on what for local and regional authorities is the most essential to achieve with the digital decade. And I think it's a very important question because from the different presentations, it was very clear that for different, national realities or local realities, there are different priorities that come up. In the Italian case, we heard about skills, but then in other cases, it was really this divide when it comes to using technology. There is also the connectivity aspect that is very frequently mentioned. So just to get an idea of what are the things that for you are the most important to achieve, I think the first vote goes to digital public services, which doesn't really surprise me because it's the kind of thing that we would use every day. But then also digital sovereignty seems to be quite voted. It's something, it's a topic that is very recurring these days also on the news. So again, doesn't really surprise me. So of course, these will keep changing and we will give you the chance to continue voting. However, maybe we should go to the second question already. Also, remember that there is a call for evidence open, as well as a survey targeting cities and local authorities. It opened yesterday. We put the link in the chat. And of course, this will be a bit your opportunity to contribute in writing and by replying to targeted questions, then we will receive and we will use for our review report. So feel free to contribute to that and to send those over to your stakeholders. So the second question is more related to the obstacles for stronger involvement of local regional actors. So why, like, what is the bottleneck? What is the main, let's say, barrier that is there that basically doesn't allow for local and regional actors to be involved in the digital decade? So insufficient administrative or technical capacity, this we've heard already in many of the presentations. I mean, Sophie, for example, mentioned the fact that we are very, let's say, fortunate to have the time and the means to be here today to discuss certain things, but at the same time, this is not something that all local authorities have because of a reduced budget or reduced amount of people working on certain topics. Also limited awareness of the digital decade and its objectives. This is a bit the reason why we try to do more of these workshops to raise awareness of what the digital decade is, what the aim is, and hopefully with the review and the call for evidence, this will be even more clear. And then I guess I thought it's actually surprising to me that the limited access to relevant data is, yes, it's 29%. So this is also something that was quite recurring in the presentations, the fact that the data at local level is less visible or less present or less shared as well than the data that is there for at national level. So maybe we can go to the next question. So this question is related to the support mechanisms that for you would be most useful to have to strengthen your involvement in the digital decade. So also to give us some ideas of what we could highlight in our report next year and potentially change in the context of the review coming up next year as well. So funding, of course, is essential. We talked about the new MFF. Funding directly related to regional and local realities. Technical assistance, this again is related to the fact that of digital skills in the first question, the fact that the need is also really a technical need and not only a need for budget. Exchange of best practices, that makes me very happy because in our team we also deal with a repository of best practices. So this is something that we actually believe in quite a bit. And capacity building support as well. So again, as I said, these are very nice to have. If you have ideas and concrete ideas that you would like to give us, please do not hesitate to contribute to the call for evidence, because that will be a moment where you can actually write and submit documents. And also in the survey, you will have the chance to develop your answers in full. So the next question. Do you or your organization currently contribute to the digital decade roadmaps? This is something that this question came up because Oog and I and other colleagues are also country coordinators within this team, and we are constantly in touch with member state representatives. And we did realize in many of the meetings that most of the time the local representatives were not necessarily involved in the roadmap creation. So it does not surprise me that, it's 38% voted for no. Yes, but contributing to the drafting of the roadmap and the measures, so that's good for us. It's a good starting point. It means also reflected in the roadmap. So good to know that the yes is winning in the end. It's good news for us. And then maybe we can go to the last question, I believe. How do you think coordination between EU, national, and local levels could be improved? So this is really essence of this workshop and the essence of what we will be trying to write in the report next year and in the review. So the solution, I guess this is the less easy question, because it's more concrete, let's say. Okay, so for now we have the same voting for all of the options, which potentially means that we need to do a combination of different things, not just one. So structured guidance on how regional and local authorities should be involved. This is something that was mentioned by the Austrian colleague. Integrate regional and local dimensions more clearly in the national roadmap. So maybe create some more differentiation between what is national funding and what is regional funding as well. What are the measures that are developed at national level and what are those developed at local level, and create synergies between the two. And then develop shared roadmaps or joint tools. I think that is very relevant to the presentation on Lordimas. So I think a lot to think about here. And I mean, I cannot stress this enough. Really try your best to contribute to the surveys that we have published, because this will be critical for us to write a strong report next year, and to make sure that the review also includes the regional dimension as much as we can, not only in terms of highlighting what are the needs, but also trying to provide for some solutions in the years to come. So thank you for participating in the Slido. As I said, this is just the beginning, and we look forward to reading your submissions in writing. Back to you, Hugues.
Thank you very much, Lavi, for having animated this interactive session. We have quite a few answers, and we will share everything with you and process this material later. So now it's the time to conclude. I think today's exchange showed that cities and regions are already indispensable driver of digital transformation. I think Kaya, you can go to the next slide. So they are indispensable driver delivering digital public services, but also building a skills ecosystem or even supporting enterprise. So those points were illustrated repeatedly during this afternoon by our panelists and the different presentation of use cases. We have heard also concrete evidence from member states, like the Italy's Territorial Observatory and Digital Municipalities Map, which revealed that 55% of municipalities cite skills shortage as the main obstacle. Australia also present the structure whole of government approach, enabling consistent coordination across federal, regional, and municipal levels. And as we heard from local actors, they confirmed this challenge and added to this the following issues: the fragmented data collection, the lack of alignment of funding cycles, also limited access to EU program, but they also showed what works, such as the digital divide observatories, but also the tool from the AI office, or the first lesson from the Citiverse EDIC, or Lordimas. During the third panel, and so looking ahead for the 2026 review, we have a clear mandate for a successful digital transformation. It will matter to embed local actors more systematically in the governance of the digital decade. And for that, we can align funding and reform through the next MFF and ensure that the tools showcased today become integral to a more coherent, inclusive, and territorially balanced digital transformation across Europe. So next slide, please. We just wanted to recall a few next steps toward this journey. So as Eric presented at the beginning of the workshop, we launched a call for evidence yesterday. So this will be the more formal way to contribute to this consultation with open free text document contribution. There is also a targeted survey for region and cities. So I guess this one, this canal is really relevant for today's participants. But there is also a survey for industrial, civil society, NGO, and also the national authorities. So the member of the Digital Decade board will have to contribute through this canal. We also have the launch of the EU Agenda for Cities, which is a work led by DG Regio, but indeed DG Connect have been onboarded in this work. Can you? Yeah. So we'll touch base later on the EU Agenda for Cities. So in January we will have also the country missions. You will be contacted by our country coordinators for us to seek for some inputs on this local stakeholders involvement. We will have also the annual Digital Decade Policy Program workshop online to gather the expert inputs. Very shortly, we will announce it on our website. And there will be as well a deep dive discussion like this one on the digital skills. So very similar to this workshop format. And we are seeking for the adoption of our State of Digital Decade Report 2026 in June, as well as the review report and the change in can lead to. And so just one last point to touch base on the agenda, the city's agenda from Regio. So DG Regio is preparing this EU policy agenda for cities. It was announced in the Executive Vice President Fito missions later, and to be adopted in December. And the main goals are to streamline the EU level support for urban areas, but also strengthen the multi-level governance. And so it will focus on our priorities such as housing, climate action, also digitalization, mobility, social inclusion, and equality. And it will create some synergies with the urban agenda that was launched in 2016. And indeed, it's a momentum for the Digital Decade Review to explore synergy with this initiative to ensure that both frameworks reinforce each other. It can lead to stronger local consultation, but also some joint monitoring tools and synergies with the Urban Digital Initiative. So this concludes our workshop. Thank you to all speakers. Thank you to the technical team for enabling us to stream this session. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We wish you a good evening.